In this video, I'm going to show a quick time lapse of my disassembling the conversion, the start of the conversion of this Roquetta 250 Enduro. So this probably took me about 2 hours, and I've time lapsed it down to about 5-6 minutes or something. So obviously the first thing I did was take the plastic and the seats off, and then at this point, of course, I'm pull the gas tank off. There wasn't a whole lot of difficulty, as you can imagine. It's like most conversions, you just take everything off. So plastic comes off easy, gas tank comes off easy. The motor itself is actually held on by 3 main mounting points, and then there's some other little things, but I pulled the air box. I just pulled the air box off, and then I pulled the cover off of the engine sprocket here so that I could get the chain off. Like I said, there's 3 mounting plates, and in this video, I toward the end of this video, you'll see how I put the electric motor in, and I use the existing mounts because it just makes it easier. I'm not as good with the welder as I'd like to, so when I can, I like to just use the existing mounts. That's what I did on some of my other conversions. So sorry about that. Unfortunately, my tripod slipped a little bit, but you can still see what I was doing. Most of this is just taking off the little auxiliary parts. I think right there I'm still working on getting the muffler off. Yeah, I got the muffler off there. And then here you can see I'm just pulling the battery, the 12-volt battery that came with it. I pulled that off. And then I did pull the carburetor out, of course. And let's see, some of the other little knick-knack and lines. I think I've already pulled most of the bolts out, the 3 main bolts that are actually holding the motor in. But as I got closer and closer to pulling the motor out, I saw more and more little lines attached to it. So I just had to go back and forth a little bit just to make sure all the lines were off of the motor before I dropped it. I think, let's see, right there, I'm not even sure what I was working on there. Probably just those main mounting points again. It has a skid plate underneath it, which will be, I can just reattach that when it's done, because it's not actually attached to the motor. It's attached to the front and back of the frame. I didn't show the other side. At the end of this video, I'm going to show you a close-up of how the electric motor is mounted in place. Unfortunately, the back brake lever hits the electric motor, so I'm going to go ahead and switch that to a hand brake, so the left side brake lever will control the back tire, and the right side will control the front tire. That I'm fine with that, because I drive pretty much only electrics at this point. So I think I was pretty much ready to drop the motor at this point. Yeah, you can see it's pretty much loose and out. I did need to get the chain off, because I get the chain out of the way. And then once I pulled that out, yep, the motor just drops out. Like I said, there's 3 main mounting points. So this was a little bit later in the day. I actually took a break, and then when I came back, I pulled the original electrical harness out I am going to replace all the lights with LED lights, so I wasn't overly worried about preserving any sort of connectors or anything. I just pulled all that out, and then since everything up front's going to be changed out as well, I needed to pull the little fairing off, so I pulled that off. And the original speedometer and little gauge that was on it, I needed to pull that off. Pretty much I just pulled everything off the front of it as well, because I'm going to be replacing all of that. So yeah, there was really no main hang-ups. It was mostly just spending a couple hours pulling everything off that you know you're not going to need. And then I could start kind of measuring and figuring out exactly how everything's going to be laid out. So I did spend a little bit of time kind of putting the motor in the general area and taking measurements and figuring it out, and then I mounted that on that top mounting spot. I put a bolt through, so that's why I just started the video with that point, because you guys didn't want to see me spend an hour taking measurements and just figuring out how it was going to lay out. So at this point, I did have to rotate the motor around several times just to kind of figure out how it would line up with the chain and not hit, not be too high or too low. So I ended up mounting it this way, and obviously any donor bike is gonna be different. So it's one of those things that every individual is gonna have to figure out. I generally just use like spacers, like little washers or whatever on the bolts to move the motor, a few millimeters one way or the other to get it lined up just right. So that's kind of what I did. And then I just took some of that regular 1/8 inch steel 1 inch flat pieces, grinded them to the length I needed them, and then just used some regular bolts. So nothing special, just a $20 piece of metal that was cut with my grinder to the right lengths. I made 3 different mounting points, so I made 6 of those little arms to tie it into those 3 different spots, and then I just used, like I said, I used spacers to get it to line up just right. And I mean, it took a little time, but so this is the finished location, I think, or at least until I get it running and fine-tune it some more. I can certainly move spacers another millimeter or 2 one way or the other. So it's very solid with these 6 spots that it's bolted to, or 3 spots that it's bolted to. It's solid, and I have a pretty good amount of space for the battery above this spot. So I'm going to certainly finish putting everything else together. Stay tuned for the next one. Thanks, guys.